Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to week 4 of this course on anti doping awareness for sports. Today, we'll be dealing with lecture 4 of week 4, which is the doping control staff. I'll be covering this lecture as per the following outline: definitions, roles and responsibility, criteria for selection of each member of the staff, code of conduct, athlete notification and sample collection procedure, behavior best practices, and we will conclude with a take home message. Let's define who's a DCO. A DCO is an official who has been trained and authorized by the anti doping organization with delegated responsibility for the on site management of a sample collection session. Who is a chaperone? A chaperone is an official who is trained and authorized by the ADO to carry out specific duties, including one or more of the following: notification of the athlete selected for sample collection, accompanying and observing the athlete until arrival at the doping control station, and or witnessing and verifying the provision of the sample where the training qualifies him or her to do so. Roles and responsibilities of the DCO. Now, generally, DCO is an official who's been trained and authorized by the ADO with the responsibility for on-site management of a sample collection session. The DCO is at the forefront of the anti-doping organization and plays an important role in protecting the rights of athletes to compete in dope-free sport. The DCOs are responsible for all steps in the sample collection session. During the results management process, the DCO's management of the sample collection session may be reviewed. The procedures may be complete. The procedures are to be completed correctly in order to avoid a result being overturned due to procedural error. DCOs must ensure that any incidents that could compromise the sample collection session are documented and the ADO is informed immediately. If a DCO is asked to provide testimony in a hearing, he or she must ask themselves, can I recall the particular test? Can I recall the particular mission? Can I defend my procedures conducted and the decisions made during the testing mission? An important message for DCOs to remember is document what you do and do what you document. There are some criteria for DCO selection. Number 1, legal age of majority in their country has to be attained by the individual. That means the individual should not be a minor. The DCO should participate in an individual or small group training session for initial certification. There's a rigid training sessions which are held, and the DCOs participate in them either singly or in small groups. Demonstrate ability to communicate effectively in the national languages and in English. It's beneficial for the DCO to communicate in the vernacular language and also in English. The DCO should demonstrate ability to follow instructions. The DCO should demonstrate ability to work under demanding conditions. The DCO should demonstrate ability to quickly and effectively solve problems. The DCO should have knowledge of the national and the international sporting community. And the DCO should have the ability to act in a respectful and professional manner. And the demeanor should always be courteous, respectful, and professional. The DCO should be able to maintain confidential information, and the DCO should be able to demonstrate sensitivity to athletes' emotions and special athletes' needs. The DCO should have the ability to meet the scheduled demands of the required duties because doping control does not have any specific timings. It may start early in the morning and finish late at night, or it may start late in the night and finish late in the night the next day. The DCO should preferably possess a valid driver's license and a vehicle. The DCO should inform the ADO of any possible conflicts of interest. The DCO should have the ability and the interest to train other sample collection personnel on doping control procedures. The DCO should have the ability and the interest to educate athletes on doping control procedures. Code of conduct. DCOs must demonstrate professional and courteous behavior while representing the ADO at sample collection sessions. DCOs must understand that their presence at a sample collection session is a privileged position and this authority must not be abused. If a gift is offered to a DCO, this must be declared to the ADO. DCOs must not speak to the media at any time on behalf of the ADO or about anything concerning the doping control process. They must not ask athletes for their autographs. They must not request photographs of athletes, and they must not request food or beverages at the event. DCOs must not enter into areas of the venue which are not accredited to sample collection personnel. Generally, this is rare because doping control personnel are given what is called an infinity pass, which allows them access to all areas of the venue and the competition playing areas. DCOs must not gamble on the outcome of a sporting event they are present at. They must not request any memorabilia from the event like clothing, medals, labels, flags, pins, etc. They must not accept gifts from an athlete or a sports official. They must not keep personal files of test data. And they must not divulge confidential data to third parties. DCOs must not show over familiarization with athletes like attending athletes' weddings, parties, etc. DCOs must not drink alcohol at events. DCOs must not wear clothing that are associated with a national or an international federation or any other organization while performing sample collection duties. DCOs must not give ADO equipment or documentation to a third party without permission. DCOs must report all potential conflicts of interest and they must report any irregularities during a testing session. DCO accreditation. The anti-doping organization is responsible for the accreditation and re-accreditation of DCOs. Accredited DCOs will be provided with authorization documentation by the ADO that identifies the DCO by name, that is accreditation card and a doping control pass. DCOs will be evaluated on a continuous basis to ensure the highest standard of quality. A DCO's accreditation is valid for a fixed term as determined by the ADO, and the ADO may revoke a DCO's accreditation at any time. Similar to DCOs, there are recruitment criteria for chaperones. They should not be a minor. They should meet the gender requirements for the specific sample collection session, have the ability to communicate effectively in the national languages or English. They should be physically fit and active. They should have the ability to follow instructions. Chaperones should have the ability to work under demanding conditions, should have the ability to quickly and effectively solve problems. They should be able to act in a respectful and professional demeanor. They should have the ability to maintain confidential information, and they should have the ability to demonstrate sensitivity to athlete emotions. They should have the ability to meet the scheduled demands of the required duties. They should not be involved in administration of the sport. They should have no involvement in the personal affairs of, or they should not be related to any athlete that may undergo doping control. They should complete the training related to doping control responsibilities, and they should complete chaperone's responsibilities form as appropriate. Code of conduct. Chaperones must demonstrate professional and courteous behavior at sample collection sessions. They must understand that presence at a sample collection session is a privileged proposition, and this authority must not be abused. If a gift is offered to a chaperone, this must be declared with the ADO. Chaperones must not speak to the media at any time on behalf of the ADO or regarding anything concerning the doping control process. They must not ask athletes for their autograph. They must not request photographs of athletes, and they must not request food or beverages during the event. They must not enter areas of the venue not accredited to sample collection personnel. They must not gamble on the outcome of a sporting event they are present at. They must not request any memorabilia from the event. They must not accept any gifts from an athlete or sports official. And they must not keep any personal files of test data. Chaperones must not divulge confidential data to third parties. Chaperones must not show over-familiarization with athletes, such as attending weddings, parties, etc. They must not drink alcohol at events. They must not wear clothing which makes an association with a national federation or an international federation. They must not give ADO equipment or documentation to third parties without permission. Chaperones must report all potential conflicts of interest. They must report any irregularities during a testing session. During athlete notification, the chaperone will be provided with a doping control form. At the appropriate time, the chaperone will approach the athlete, notify the athlete of his selection for doping control. If the athlete is a minor or a disabled athlete, the chaperone will notify a third party such as the coach or the team doctor of the athlete. The chaperone will be responsible for informing the athlete that he or she must arrive at the designated doping control station within the stipulated time following notification. He is allowed to bring one accompanying representative or interpreter to the doping control station. The athlete will be accompanied by the chaperone until the completion of the sample collection process, and the athlete should bring photo identification to the doping control station, and the possible consequences of a failure to comply should also be informed to the athlete. The chaperone will request that the athlete read and sign the doping control form in the notification section, acknowledging his or her selection for doping control and understanding his or her rights and responsibilities. The chaperone will report any unusual behavior to the DCO as soon as possible. The chaperone will immediately report to the DCO any athlete's failure to comply with a request for doping control. After athlete notification, the chaperone must remain with the athlete After athlete notification, the chaperone must remain with the athlete until he or she arrives at the doping control station and has completed the procedures, or another DCO or chaperone has accepted responsibility for the athlete. The chaperone should stay as close in proximity to the athlete as possible and must maintain visual contact with the athlete at all times until the athlete reports to the doping control station. The chaperone should ensure that the athlete reports to the DCS as soon as possible after notification. If the chaperone athlete requests a delay in reporting, the chaperone DCO may grant this delay. But if the athlete cannot be continuously chaperoned, the chaperone DCO may reject this request. After athlete notification, the chaperone may permit the athlete to participate in a victory ceremony, to fulfill media commitments, compete in further competitions, perform a cooling down, obtain medical treatment, locate a representative and an interpreter, obtain photo identification, and any other exceptional circumstances that might be justified. The chaperone should ensure that the athlete does not leave the competition venue and the athlete does not urinate until they go through the doping control process. Chaperone should not select the athlete's beverage or once selected, handle the athlete's beverage. If the chaperone observes any suspicious or unusual behavior by the athlete, the chaperone will report this to the DCO as soon as possible. Chaperones witnessing sample collection must be of the same gender as the athlete. Only the designated chaperone and the athlete should be in the restroom during the sample collection procedure. For minor or disabled athlete, the chaperone will be informed by the DCO about special procedures. While witnessing sample collection, the chaperone will ensure that the athlete's shirt pulled up to mid-torso, the sleeves are rolled up to the elbows, and the trousers are down to mid-thigh. The chaperone will ensure that the direct, unobstructed observation of the urine passing from the athlete into the collection container is accomplished. The chaperone will request the athlete to wash his or her hands prior to the provision of the sample. Chaperone will print and sign his name on the doping control form at the appropriate area to confirm that he or she had a direct, unobstructed view of the passing of the sample. The chaperone should report to the DCO any suspicious or unusual behavior exhibited by the athlete. Behavioral best practices for the doping control staff. They should be courteous and professional in approach at all times. They should be sensitive to the requirements placed on an athlete during doping control. They should check the understanding of the athlete throughout the process and offer explanations where deemed appropriate. They should be in appropriate clothing and in decent appearance for the event. They should always arrive on time and they should adhere to procedures contained in the DCO manual and the agreements. Use of tobacco in or around the testing area or near athletes or in anti-doping organization attire is not allowed. Venues are smoke-free and it should be respected. Chaperones must not consume alcohol before or during their ADO responsibilities. Chaperones will not attend any ADO-related activity under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. Drinking alcohol while wearing ADO attire is not permitted, and doping control staff are not permitted to place bets on any event where they are conducting testing activities on behalf of the ADO. Take-home message. Doping control has legal implications. Doping control staff are recruited and trained as per strict criteria. Sample collection requires specialized training and documentation. The staff should adhere to all rules and regulations strictly and report deviations promptly. Please ensure that best practices behavior is followed every time. These are my references, ladies and gentlemen. I seem to have finished, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for continuing with the course. I look forward to seeing you during the next lecture. Thank you and Jai Hind.